let's look at some steps for starting tomatoes and peppers indoors. The secret trick for sturdy transplants. I found this article and found it very interesting. And seeing as how the growing season for most of us are going to begin here in just 2 or 3 months, I thought it'd be interesting to look into this article about starting our tomato seeds and pepper seeds. Now, as Sandy and I have not been real prominent gardeners over our life, we have grown a few gardens, and we've had some success with our tomatoes, and last year our peppers did horrible. So this year we're going to try a different route, but for the most part our tomatoes have always done very well. And this year we have plowed a much larger garden than we've ever had. We've doubled the size of our garden area because we plan on growing more food. We think it's very important that ourselves and those of you who are listening and who subscribe to our channel, and those of you who may choose to subscribe to our channel, understand that it's important that we start providing our own food regardless of what takes place in the next few days or in the next year. We need to become more self-sufficient. Again, we as a people in general have become very dependent on the government to take care of us, to provide us food, to provide us clothing, to provide us water, to provide everything we have. And that's not a good thing. We don't need to be dependent or that dependent on anything or anybody. We need to learn to be more dependent upon ourselves and our own resources yet again. But of course, as we always say, our full dependency needs to be on the Lord God of creation. His name is Jesus. So that's truly who we need to be dependent on. But He gives us the ability and the knowledge in this earth to do the things we need to do to take care of ourselves. So we need to plant, and we need to do these things, preserve and do these things to take care of our natural body, because we still live in the natural and we have to take care of those things. And the Lord gives us wisdom to do that. And I really hope that most of you will come to the understanding of that want to argue that God's going to take care of everything and you don't need to do anything, just trust in Jesus and everything's going to be okay. Well, that's fine. And we do need to trust in Jesus, and we do need to put our trust in God, but we also have to understand that God gives us knowledge how to do these things and how to take care of ourselves, and we still have the flesh to live in, and we have to take care of this flesh. We can't just go out here and sit on the porch and wait for the ravens to bring us everything, because if we do, we're going to starve to death. It really is that simple. So let's look at these things in a correct manner and in a correct spiritual way that we should, and let's do the things that God expects us to do. So let's look at 10 steps for starting tomatoes. And the first thing they say is you don't have to wait to spring for spring to arrive before you get your garden started. And we're here in just the next little bit, we're going to have our garden tilled, or not tilled, but disc, and then very shortly we'll be working in it to get it prepared to transplant our plants in it. We'll be laying off rows and things like that later on. So the first thing that we need to do, and I agree with this article, I went through it and kind of read through it, is choose the right variety for your climate zone. Now, everybody lives in a different climate zone. We spoke about this just a little bit in a live video the other evening, and we need to find out what climate zone we live in. And the best way to do that is to go to the USDA Plant Hardiness Zone, and it is linked right here, and I will open that for you. And right here it is. I'll link this in the description box below. And whatever state you live in, let's say you lived in the state of Georgia. If you click Georgia, it will show you your hardiness zones right here. Which part of the state you live in would depend on your hardiness zone, and it's listed right here. And it's just like with us, we have 3 different zones in our state. We have zone 6A, 6B, and 7A. For some reason it's slow going back, but at any rate, you can click on the state you live in and it'll take you to that. Thank you all for watching our video. We now have memberships available on our channel, and if you would like to support our channel, that's one way you can do it. There are 3 different levels of perks on that. We also have our PayPal address in the description box below, and we also have our store link down there. So if you'd like to support us in any way, you can most certainly do that by one of those methods. And again, thank you for being a part of our channel, and thank you for considering joining Backroads Living. Particular zone you live in and show you what your climate zone is, and that way when you buy your seeds, you can look on the back of the seed packets, and it always tells you what zone these seeds are best grown in. So the next thing we want to look at is what kind of seeds do you want to buy. That depends on if you want to save your seeds or not. If you're going to save seeds for the following year, the next years to come, then you need to get the heirloom varieties instead of the hybrids, because the heirlooms produce the exact seed of the plant that's growing it, and you can always save them and put them back and have the same fruit the next year, the same crop, the same vegetables. It always produces the same vegetable year after year after year, the same taste, the same color, the same everything. That's what's so wonderful about heirloom seeds. But now, if you try to save the hybrids, they don't work. And the reason you can't save the hybrid seeds is because they've been crossed with other seeds and pollinated in a different way to create a flavor or a size or a color that's not natural to the original seed, and these won't carry over into the next year's crop. So you can't use these. And if you live in a cooler climate, then you'll want to choose varieties for those cooler climates. We have a lot of folks that follow us here from up in Pennsylvania and Michigan and some of the northern states, and it's important that we know what growing zone we live in and what time to plant our seeds, when to start them, when to plant them, and that way we get a good harvest out of them. And a lot of you folks I know have already ahead of time, for years probably, even had small growing houses or greenhouses that you've made. Some of you said you built greenhouses, small greenhouses out of old windows and things like that, and that gives you a great start. And you can get your tomatoes ready to transplant. They'll already be large and ready to go when when the garden season arrives. And but here's some of the tomatoes for the more cold hardy zones: are the Bloody Butcher, the Black Prince, the Aurora, Latea, and Stupus. Intermediate tomato types tend to be mainstay or short season gardens. May produce tomatoes in as few as 55 days from planting. So that is a great thing. 55 days is a short planting time, or a short cycle time for the fruit to come on. What's the difference between determinate and intermediate tomatoes? As you can see, the intermediate tomato produces fruit. It continues to grow right on through the growing season, and it doesn't stop at a certain height. The determinate grows to a certain height and stops and produces fruit throughout the vine. It says that the intermediate will grow through the entire season, producing fruit all along the stems. Intermediate varieties require more space and support, but they're a great choice for anyone with shorter growing seasons. So by choosing fast maturing types of tomato and pepper in addition to starting seeds indoor can help you maximize your chances of obtaining a worthwhile yield before cold weather arrives once again. The next thing is start growing or sowing at the right time for your location. Now, a lot of people start sowing in January, as early as January and February. Depending on where you live, you could start sowing your seeds that early. Sowing indoor means you can start your tomatoes and peppers much earlier. Again, however, it's important to take your location into account. Typically, cold climate gardeners will sow indoors quite early in the year, as January or February. For instance, here in Scotland, now these folks are in Scotland, I typically sow tomatoes and peppers in late January and early February. This gives me a head start on the growing season. I will keep the seedlings on my windowsill indoors, potting them up as required, and won't typically plant them in the polytunnel until late April or May. So they get theirs ready. They start their seedlings in January and February. The next thing you'd want to do is consider your containers. Now, Sandy and I have purchased some of the containers that you can buy at the big box stores. We found some of those at flea markets and yard sales this past year, and we picked up a couple or so of those. We've also been putting back toilet paper rolls. The inner core of the toilet paper rolls. We're going to cut those in half, or maybe just from the length of it, we'll probably just crease the bottoms, fill them up with dirt, and use one of those, for a couple of seedlings. And we've got several of those that we can use like that. We're going to go ahead and pick us up some topsoil here in just a couple of days and start looking forward to that. But as you can see here, you can also use egg cartons, the paper egg cartons, of course. These are things that can disintegrate and will in the soil when planted. You actually don't even have to take your seedlings out of them. Once you wet this stuff, it's going to come apart in the soil and go right back into the soil. So those are good things to use. You don't have to rush out and buy new containers to sow your seeds and grow your seedlings indoor before planting them out. There's a wide range of reclaimed waste materials such as plastic milk cartons that you can use for seed trays or seed starting flats and pots. Now you can take a milk carton and cut the top off of it, fill it with potting soil, and you can plant several seedlings in the base of a container like that. You might want to drill you a couple of holes in the bottom, or maybe one in each corner to allow drainage for your water. But if you're doing that, you need to make sure that they are very clean. You don't want to put them in old containers that's not been cleaned out from the last year. They could have some kind of fungi in them or things like that that could cause you some problems. And it says you should consider starting your seeds in biodegradable pots such as lemon rinds, eggshells, egg cartons, and more. So there's some things that you could use. They have paper egg cartons, and that's what they're talking about here, not the plastic ones. So consider your growing medium. You need to consider the soil you're using. As we was talking about up here just a second ago, you don't need stuff that's dirty or things that's been left over that might have stuff in it that you don't want in your soil. As well as thinking about your seed starting trays or pots, you should think carefully about your growing medium. The medium that's ideal for seed startings isn't necessarily the same medium that's ideal for growing seedlings. To start tomato and pepper seed, you simply need a sterile potting mix. The purpose of the mix is simply to provide a medium to enable the seed to sprout and survive until true leaves form. Never use garden soil to start your seedlings, as it can harbor disease and pathogens that can kill your seeds. So you want to get your seedlings started before you put them into garden soil. Choose the right location for the seeds and seedlings. A sunny location is always best for these, like a southern window, or you may even be able to take them out of the day once it warms up to 60 degrees or so. Be real nice for them right there, or 40 or even better. 40 degrees is not going to wilt your tomatoes or seedlings or anything like that, but anything 40 or above right here, it says that the best germination rates are between 60 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and setting them in a good window facing south where the sun comes in through that window, that really gives them some good heat, and that's great for your tomatoes and peppers. It says peppers require temperatures between 65 and 95 and will do best around 85 degrees. Most of us rarely keep our homes at 85. It's a good idea to start your seedlings on a seeding heat mat. Now, they make heat mats for this. They make grow lights for this kind of stuff to keep them warm. If you don't live in an area where you get much sun, or you can't get sun into a window, maybe you don't have a window where you can set these to germinate and grow, you might want to consider getting you a grow light or a heating mat like they showed here. The sun is much better. Grow lights work great also. So let's look at this next thing: thin seedlings before competition becomes a problem. As your seedlings begin to grow, you'll most certainly want to thin them out, because you don't want them competing for the nutrients in the soil and stunning the growth of each other. Repot seedlings as necessary. Now, this is something we need to think about, because as our seedlings begin to get larger, they can become too large for the container they're in. You may need to repot them to some kind of potting container or something, because you can't put your stuff out before the frost unless you have a way to cover it. And we made that mistake last year. They had already predicted the last day of frost. We went and planted several tomato plants, and then within just like 3 or 4 days they gave frost that night. So here we went back out and dug all of ours up. We had no way of covering them all that quick, so we just had to dig them all back up, put them all back in containers, and then wait for another few days to make sure the frost danger was pass, then we put them back out, and they did fine, but it just created a lot of extra work for us. So try to be sure that that the frost is passed before you put your tomatoes out, or have a way to cover them. This year we would definitely be covering our tomatoes rather than trying to dig them all back up. That's not fun, I'll tell you that ahead of time. And in this article it says the secret trick for sturdy tomato and pepper plants with healthy roots. When it comes to repotting tomatoes and peppers, you shouldn't repot with your growing medium at the same level on the stem. Instead, each time you repot, plant the young plant deeper so the growing medium is higher up on the stem. And that's something you need to do when you plant it in your garden. New roots will grow from the buried section of the stem, so by the time you move your tomatoes and peppers to the garden, they'll have stronger and healthier root systems. That's an excellent piece of advice right there. Get it right when it comes to watering tomatoes and peppers. Another common issue when seeds are grown indoors or sown indoors is watering too much or too little. Remember that plants grow in pots or containers will typically need more watering than plants in the ground. While indoor air is generally less humid than outdoor air, it's especially important to remember in the winter when the air is drier in your home because of heating. A good rule of thumb is to check seedlings daily. Let me say that again. Check seedlings daily. Even one day of seeding in parched soil can be enough to kill off your seedlings. Consider keeping seedlings covered to keep the growing medium moist until the plants are well established. And of course, it's better to water deeply and less often than more frequently and sparingly. This encourages deeper and stronger root systems in the long run. Harden off tomatoes and peppers grown indoors. Now, how many times you repot your tomato and pepper seedlings will of course depend on how swiftly they grow and the environmental conditions. Of course, it also depends on when you can transplant summer crops in your area. Regardless of repotting, there is one final step you have to do before planting your tomatoes and peppers in the garden. It's called hardening off. Let me highlight that there so you'll get this and not miss it. Hardening off. Hardening off is simply the process of acclimatizing your indoor growth plants to outdoor conditions. They need to become adjusted to outdoor conditions before you stick them in the ground. This is essential to avoid issues with transplant shock, and is particularly important for tomatoes and peppers since these crops are typically grown inside over a longer period than other spring sown seeds. How to harden off tomatoes and pepper plants. You'll want to begin hardening off your plants about a week before you plan on transplanting them in the garden. Make sure your plants are well watered before beginning. Take your plants outside and place them in an area that's somewhat protected from the elements. You don't want them setting somewhere in direct sun or in a place that receives a lot of wind. Let the plants sit outside for an hour, then bring them back in each day. Add another hour to their time spent outdoors. Within a week, they'll be up to 7 hours a day spent outside and should be ready to brave the big outdoors permanently. Yay, that's what we want, them to be able to brave the outdoors permanently. So anyway, there's a lot of information that I didn't read in this article, and I will post the link to this article in this video in the description box below. I'll also post the link to the USDA plant hardiness zone right here. I'll post the link to this in this description box below. And again, we appreciate you, and if you enjoy our videos, we'd ask that you subscribe to our channel, that you like our videos, and share us with your social media. We also have our personal protection devices on the right side of the screen there. If you'd be interested in one of them, you can find them at the link provided for our store link in the description box below. We have also created a new account called on MeWe, M-E-W-E. We have that link in the bottom of the description box below also. We're going to start moving a lot of our social media stuff over there, like from Facebook. We also have several other mediums of social media besides YouTube. If you'll check out the description box below and go over and check out our videos over there and create your account over there, because we don't know at what point we may be taken down from this platform. We received a warning here just a few weeks ago over nothing, and we appealed that, and they did remove the warning. But folks, I tell you, there is kind of a war on our kind of thinking on social media. So some of the other social media platforms that we're on. I really do think that we have a better chance of staying up longer on those than we do this one, but we're going to use this one until it runs out. So again, with that in mind, I would ask that you look to the Lord for all your hope and for all your wisdom, and to keep praying and keep prepping. And until the next time, we'll see you in the next video.